Today we have a special guest joining us on this live edition of the Ed Podcast. We have Old Waconian and entrepreneur Hannah Beaumont-Laurencia here. Hi. So could you introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Hannah Beaumont-Laurencia. I am the founder and CEO of Beaumont Organic, which I founded in 2008. And as you said, I'm also an Old Waconian. I left here school in 2002, having started, I went all the way through from, not from juniors, but from the beginning of, I don't know what year you'd call it now, but from 11 anyway.
Yeah.
So Beaumont Organic is your organic clothing brand. Could you tell us the story of this business?
Yep, so as I mentioned, I founded it in 2008 off the back of going to university, but more kind of importantly, taking a gap year. And I think that having kind of travelled quite a bit and seeing the world in its true light, not just kind of the quite pigeonholed world that we see living here in England and going to quite a nice school and having a nice upbringing, it really made me think differently about the kind of path I wanted to go on with my business. So I left university and I went and got a job at Monsoon down in London. It's still going now. It's a ladies' retail company as an assistant buyer. And I stayed for just over a year. And basically during my time there, I really realised that coupled with kind of the life experience I'd had during my gap year and what I was doing at Monsoon, which didn't feel very ethical regarding the way that we were treating the supply chain, negotiating prices, like cheapening garments to put like acrylics in to make the yarn cheaper to then make a bigger margin, that it wasn't really a place I wanted to stay working at. So I left to found Beaumont Organic in 2008. I was obviously quite young and quite naive, which has its positives and negatives, because the reality is you're not scared, so that's great. So you kind of just go head in, but you haven't got much experience, you haven't got a network around you, and so there are like some negatives to that too. But I threw myself in and we were quite fortunate. We kind of grew quite quickly in Japan in the early days. And it's been quite a long journey, so I won't bore you with the year-by-year updates. But we now distribute quite successfully in the USA, Switzerland and the UK. So we've got kind of like different aspects of the business, from kind of wholesale to retail, both website and our own store. So I think it's quite a diverse mix, and it's been quite a long journey to get to that point. So and we've only got like 20 minutes, so yeah.
What do you think was the biggest challenge that you had to push through when you were initially just starting the clothing brand?
I think being quite young, and also interestingly looking at the fact there's more ladies in here than guys, being a girl in what we think is quite a female industry, but it's actually very male driven. A lot of the people that are nearer the top of like your supply chain, so kind of your factory owners, even the distributor owners, mainly guys. I was working a lot with Japan, that was very heavily male driven, and I didn't have much of a network around me, so I was quite kind of vulnerable and naive as quite a young girl in an industry that I didn't understand that well, with quite a lot of men kind of telling me what to do. So I think surrounding yourself with a strong network, you know, kind of getting a mentor, getting like some support around you, so that when you go into kind of bigger meetings, negotiating things, you actually have your own two legs to stand on firmly.
You said it was hard to not have a network. How did you build that network?
Getting out of my comfort zone. So I am not an extrovert at all. I actually really like being at home in my pajamas and with my dog. Like, that's my ideal scenario. But that's not how you're going to build your network. So obviously you can use like LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook and all these great platforms, but there's nothing like meeting in person, and it does cement relationships. So it's great to kind of meet the people maybe for the first time by introducing yourself on Instagram, but then you do need to get out and have a coffee with them and actually really meet them. So often it's when you're out of your comfort zone that things really start happening. And yeah, you can even start doing that now with starting to build your network, because I don't think I did that enough when I was younger. So I had to really start doing it once I'd started the business.
That's really interesting that you've sort of changed the narrative and you've gone from like quite a male oriented like business to sort of make it your own. I've noticed you have a mindful coaching service. Can you explain a little bit more about what this means and how it might have benefited you or other people in your business?
Yeah, I think that also slightly stems from the experiences I'd had and the fact that I'm not anything against men. I mean, I do have a husband and we have lots of very good male friends, but a lot of kind of male coaches and a lot of generally coaches are really pushing for just turnover and profit, which is obviously really important, and there's no point having your business if you're not making any money. You might as well just go and work for somebody and have an easier ride. But there's also so many other aspects that go into a business that are really important, and there's so many more reasons why you'll have a good employee than just paying them a good salary. And all those facets need to go into a really healthy company, and there needs to be work-life balance. You need to let people go off and collect their kids if they need to, or elements of flexible working. And I think a lot of companies are just so tuned into, well, I'm not doing very well, my turnover's over only this. And so I had quite a lot of people approaching me about different ways I could help, which is why I started the coaching service. It was never really my intention, but it's just evolved. And it's a nice way to give back as well, even though it is part of my business too, because I feel like I'm helping other people go on a healthier journey with their business and take breaks. That's another one.
Do you find it increases the work ethic as well? Or?
Yeah, it does, because like, for example, over Christmas, we're a retail company. Most retail companies work their staff to death over Christmas because they're like, it's a busy time of year, the store should be open, Boxing Day sales, all this kind of thing. And I was like, well, the reality is if everyone's already drained in December, if you make your people work like dogs over those 2 weeks too, then no one's going to have any energy to come back in January, which is our busiest time of year because we wholesale for summer for the following year in January, so it's like really intense. So we actually just shut for 2 weeks, and it's like quite unheard of really, but it allows everyone to go home, spend time with their family, and that's what I was referring to by rest. Like we do all need to allow ourselves time off, and we're not like skiving if we're taking time off, we're actually like nourishing our bodies. So yeah, I think it's really important.
Yeah, so how about when you're not taking breaks, what does an average day in your life look like when you're running both your clothing business and your mindful coaching business?
Yeah, it's pretty full on. There haven't been many breaks in the last couple of months, I'm not going to lie. So I do every morning start the day with yoga and meditation, and because my phone is pretty hectic during the day, so I don't have a lot of time to actually switch off. And I think that kind of grounds me for the day. After that, if I'm in the office, it's pretty much back-to-back meetings because we only all go into the office twice a week. So everyone kind of just wants a bit of me for those 2 days. If I'm working from home, we still have quite a lot of Zoom meetings. And because we're quite international, that can be into the evening too. Because, selling in America, you've got like meetings in the evenings because it's morning there. So a lot of that, I do a lot of factory visits. I still go out to the factory at least twice a year, but often more. Again, that's all to do with the relationships, and just even though I do have staff who could go out to the factories for me and do go, I still think it's important that I show my face there. I also go and visit our stores. We stock over 100 stores around the world. I visit a good handful of those each year as well, like making sure that I'm present. And then we also show at trade shows. So I'm kind of keeping my fingers a little bit in all of the pies to make sure that I'm present, even though I'm not actively doing the work. I'm just going there and building the relationships. And then obviously there is aspects of design and other things that get involved. But we only have 2 collections a year, and each collection's only about 60 pieces, so it's very seasonal. And actually, I think when you start a fashion business, you think, oh, well, I'll do that because I like drawing or I like designing clothes. But the reality is most of your time is spent running the business. A very small section is actually spent designing and choosing the fabrics and the colours, because it's a big chunk of it is just business. So
yeah, how long did it take for you to actually get it off the ground then?
Well, I was actually really lucky in 2009. We entered an award and we won it, and I signed a distributor in Japan, and that really propelled the business quite quickly because the Japanese love a very clean, modern look of clothing, and we were kind of just the right look at the right time. So then I ended up spending a lot of time in Tokyo, obviously, because then I was back and forth to Japan. But it allowed the business to really grow from kind of 0 to your first 100k quite fast, which for some companies could take quite a long time if you're just trying to go after one shop at a time.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back in time a bit to when you were here at CHS. How did you discover your passion for fashion? And do you have any anecdotes or stories of any teachers that helped you?
Well, I did spend a lot of time in the textile and pottery studios here. I actually really struggled at school because of my dyslexia. So art and pottery and textiles had always been a really good kind of way for me to shine because I was really good at it and it didn't involve writing any words or doing anything that I didn't really enjoy doing. So I did spend a lot of time in those areas, and I felt like I was kind of really encouraged to as well. Like even though perhaps my grades weren't that good in other areas, because they were so good in there, I was kind of pushed more into that direction. I mean, I was very entrepreneurial even then. So I was like making handbags, selling them to friends, selling them at local boutiques, making bracelets. I just think I had it in me. I was just a bit busy, but it was always busy like using my hands in different ways. So yeah, I can't really remember any like specific teachers regarding actual fashion, because I did do some textiles, but I don't remember like making any clothes until I kind of got to uni. But I do remember being in a very supported environment, and I was also very sporty. So I think that the things that I was good at, I was really supported at, which made, in the end, I got like really good grades because I felt so much more relaxed. So I think it's about kind of doing the things you're really good at and just focus on those, and the other things will eventually come.
On your website, you talk about the importance of taking a gap year after your A-levels. Could you tell us a bit more about what it was like living in Fiji for 4 months?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the school still encourages gap years, but when I was going through school, it was quite a big thing that there was organisations that helped you organise it. And partly because I had really struggled with my dyslexia, I knew I wasn't going to go straight to university and I just needed a break. And so I lived for 4 months of my year out on Taveuni Island, which is the third largest island, but a very small island in Fiji, in basically a tin hut with like a very small outdoor toilet and a tap for your running water. And it was the most basic experience I've ever experienced in my life, and I've travelled a lot since. And it was like the most humbling 4 months of my life. The people that looked after us would have done anything for us at the drop of a hat, even in the middle of the night when we were woken up by like rats and we were literally so scared. Me and was one girl who were living on this island together. She'd been to boarding school. She was even more kind of privileged than I was. And we were just like, what, we can't stay living here. And they came over and they were like, this is totally normal. They'll have gone in the morning, they just jump down and they just scurry around a bit. And we were like, oh my God, it's not normal at all. And spiders in the shower. I mean, we lived with, cockroaches in your trousers in the morning, you have to like wax them out. But I think because the people were just so amazing, it just really made me realise that you don't need as much stuff as we had. And, I lived with one suitcase for 4 months. Prior to that, I probably never wore the same clothes from one day to the next. Yeah. And things didn't even match because whatever was dry off the washing line just went on. And it just made me realise that I needed to kind of like reevaluate some of the way I was living and be a lot more grateful for the things that I had at home, and try and give back to them, because I really feel like they'd given me such like an experience that I probably would never have again, and I really haven't, even with all the travelling I've done since. So yeah, I highly recommend a gap year for anyone who's considering it, because it will change your life.
Do you think it made your time at university easier? Because you cleared your head and you had that time to
100%. And also I was so mature by the time I got to university, because I'd had to do everything myself. I mean, we had to boil water to drink it. It was like we were on those kind of like basic levels. You couldn't just drink out of the tap. I mean, it would have really made your stomach very, very upset. So, and everyone I was put with in my uni halls had also done gap years, so we were all a little bit more mature. Everyone kind of knew how to cook. People were a bit more respectful, and I think it is a really important part of your kind of life journey if you can do it and afford to do it. And
in a world where it's easy to get wrapped up in the world of fast fashion and order things quickly via Amazon, ASOS, etc., do you have any tips for students who are looking to live more sustainably?
I think one of my biggest tips for everyone is just to slow down. I think we're running at such a pace, all of us, all the time, where there's always something else you should be doing or somewhere else you should be going. And actually, if we just slow down, then half the time you probably wouldn't even need the thing you're buying. You could find it in your wardrobe or your friend's wardrobe or probably your mum's. and just be and allow yourself the time to, if it is something you really need, there's so much choice on like eBay, Depop, secondhand stores, like clothes swaps, but you have to have time to do that, you know, because that might not come tomorrow. So, but if we are all just being a bit more conscious with our time and the way we're spending it, then we can change things. So yeah, I think that's probably my biggest piece of advice.
And finally for me, so why is organic and sustainable living so important?
It's always been a very kind of big part of my life, even when I was quite young, interestingly. Like, I was always wearing natural fibres. I think I didn't realise that it was like already in me. Even in like my teens, I was wearing a lot of linen. Linen wasn't all that fashionable back then, but I was kind of wearing it. And I think I do genuinely feel better in natural fabrics, and there's a lot of science tests that have been done on the topic that if you wear polyester, how that drains you, like your physical body, compared to wearing natural fibres. And I think as I've grown older, I've just become more and more aware of it, and not just the organic of, you know, clothing, but obviously also food. And then the living more sustainably is just all aspects of your life. I mean, it goes back to slowing down, but it also goes back to the way you're living at home. I have a very minimal house. We don't have a lot of clutter in it. Like, it's very light, it's bright, it's a place where you re-energise. There's so many points along the way that can help you live a lot more consciously. And I think when you become more conscious of it, you're like, oh, I do need to like clear that out, and that is actually making me have a bit of a headache. But if you're not conscious in your head, then you're just going to carry on and carry on running, and then when you're running really fast, you don't see all these things. So
Yeah, I mean, my room's always messy, so I think I need to...
you sort that out.
Yeah, I
you need to marry
sort that
conduit.
But sadly, I think that's all the time that we have for today. But thank you so much to Hannah for joining us for the Ed Podcast, and we'll see you next time for another episode.
Thanks.